All right, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us again. We are back, and I'm here with Marc Beauséjour. How's it going, Marc?
It's going well. It's good to be back.
I am so glad. I love this guy. He's really, really cool. We've already done a couple videos together, but I think it's our first webinar, right?
Yeah, it's our first live webinar.
First live webinar. Yeah. We're going to have a lot of fun today.
Oh, yes.
And the reason why we're going to have a lot of fun is because we get to interact with all of you wonderful people all over the internet. I mean, right now I'm looking at it, and we have... there's Min Destins. Hey, Min is from Austria. Thanks for joining us. What time is it there over there, Min? You're staying up either really late or it's in the afternoon sometime. So good morning, good afternoon. John Royer, thanks for joining us. Dan Shores. No, there's no music in the background. I forgot to put the little music in the background, but we'll do that next time. And Janusz Hanuszek, hello. Nice to see you. William Frisbee. And Sander Weijers. Min says it's 4 p.m. right now in Austria, so thanks for staying with us. So right before dinner, he gets to enjoy some RDM action.
That's excellent.
It's the best meal you can have, right?
It's the best.
Before we get started, I just wanted to give you guys a little bit of housekeeping stuff. So obviously, we're using the Hopin platform. There's going to be some people trickling in right now joining, so we are in the live stage. We're going to be here for about an hour, from 10 to 11 Eastern Daylight Time. And then after 11, we're going to skedaddle out of here virtually. And then we're going to go into the Sessions tab, where you can open up your mic and your camera if you want. We'd love to see you guys from wherever you are, all over, guys and gals all over the world. And you can ask any specific questions, more detailed questions, if you want Marc to demo something specific that maybe we didn't get a chance to show off during our webinar. So I think it'll be a good opportunity. So make sure you do that. Number two, because it's streaming, because it's virtual, we are recording everything, and we'll publish that in a couple of days on YouTube. But realize that there are some latency issues sometimes. So if you ever see that my voice and the video doesn't match, and it turns into like some Chinese martial arts movie, you know, you know how back in the day, I don't know,
it's gibberish.
We'd watch those Jackie Chan movies, and sometimes it's like, okay, but if that happens, then go ahead and just refresh the browser. You don't have to close the browser or anything, just refresh the window and it should sync right back up. But the video recording will be available as well for some of you that are on the other side of the world. You may want to watch it a little bit later as well. Other than that, if you have any questions, you can go ahead and put them in the chat section on the right-hand side. There's a little arrow that you can pop open and close the screen if you want to maximize or minimize the view. And you can put some questions in chat if you have anything for Jenny, you just want to chat to people. There's also the stage chat. You'll see an event chat and a stage chat. The stage will be geared particularly toward Marc and I right now. So if there's any questions you have for Marc about what he's showing off in RDM or anything that we're showing right now, you're more than welcome to interact. So we're going to do Q&A as we go along. And we also have wonderful James Lafleur, who is going to be answering questions as well in the background from our customer support team. Great gang of guys and ladies there as well that'll be helping out throughout the session. We've got Jenny, who's everywhere, and she's in all the little tabs and all that. She's got like 47 windows open probably, but Jen is joining there. If you have any questions technically, you can ask her. And other than that, we're probably going to have a couple polls going on, right? I think we put a poll in the stage tab, and actually the first poll that Marc asked was which edition of RDM we're currently using, right? So
yeah, that's right. Yeah, the addition of RDM is always important to know, to see where people stand and where exactly their needs lie. And if they're using RDM free, well, we can always, show things that are relevant to them. Even those that are enterprise, especially on enterprise, they'll see things that maybe they're not using, that they'll see today, that they'll bring in more value to Remote Desktop Manager than what they've been using so far.
Absolutely. So we have all that for you. So if you want to go and answer that poll, I'm actually going to click I am not currently using RDM. Actually, no. I have the enterprise at home. Man, it cost me a lot of money, but this guy gave me a good deal, just saying.
I'm the deal maker.
Marc is the deal maker, so deal or no deal, right?
Deal or no deal.
Anyway, so there's that. So we're going to have Q&A during the whole session. And our goal today with this webinar is to spend about an hour with you wonderful people and give you 5 And actually, I think there's some more. There's some bonus tips too. But 5 main best practices or tips for using Remote Desktop Manager in a team environment. Now, obviously, a lot of these things pertain to single users as well, right?
Correct.
But we just wanted to give you, because I think what we've been hearing from you folks is we want more RDM. And so we're going to give you what you've asked. And I invited Marc because he's the expert of all things when it comes to that. But technically he works at, tell us a little bit about what your role is here, and maybe a little bit about what you did before and what you're doing now.
Yeah, I've been here for over 5 years now. I've been, first of all, I started in support with our support team, our great support team that some of you might have experienced. And I'm sure that with all the words that we've received over the years, especially when it comes to our responses, people are always amazed. That's the feedback we receive at how fast we respond, whether it's on the chat, whether it's on the phone, whether it's especially via email. Email sometimes, despite our, we always go out of our way to provide the best support policies, I should say. I've been doing that for almost, I would say, up until 2018, 3 years. And then I moved over to our sales team as a pre-sales engineer to help our inside sales team provide an even better offering of our solutions by giving you sessions, giving you calls, going over all of our suite of products, and ensuring that at the end of the day, you have a bigger picture of what we're doing, but also have a bigger picture as to what the power of our solutions are. This is what I've been doing over 5 years, not just in sales, but also back when I was in support, providing some, things for our customers, and some onboarding them in support sessions as well. This is what I've been doing, and this is what I like. This is the essence of me, I should say. I like having these interactions with people, and I'm sure that maybe some of you today are with us, and we've talked together in a call. Even if you haven't gone forward with RDM today or before, I'm sure that perhaps today will be the deciding factor to go forward with us. But in any case, it's always my pleasure to provide calls with customers. This is what I do, and this is what I like. It's my life, I should say.
Marc is really passionate about it, and I know he doesn't want me to toot his horn, but but I'm just saying, Marc really loves what he does, and
Correct.
I think that's you can see that amongst all the groups here. We have right now Jeff and James, and they're all upstairs or wherever they are around the world or the city. They're all helping out and doing their best. So we really love this product, but the goal is also, we're not here to tell you necessarily, what you need to do with it, but the idea is to show you how you can maximize your use out of it. Because many of you, right now, I looked at the poll so far, and it said that 27% of you are using the free edition, and 72% are using the enterprise so far. So thanks for answering that question already. So we're primarily talking to enterprise users, but we'll differentiate a little bit of things. So Marc will let you know, like, this feature is not available in the free, or it is available in enterprise only if you do such and such. So, all right, so we're gonna get started here. But thanks Ben Leibowitz. A big shout out to him. He's been a big help to us as well. A lot of our users are what we call power users, right? Or RDM Pro users, RDM Jedis.
Yes.
So
Jedis.
They help a lot of the times, like. Sure, we develop software, and we have a team that's constantly working at making things better. Yeah. But a lot of the things that you see in RDM today is because you have asked for it, and we love that interaction. And that's what's saying, it's really your software. We just get to play with it. We also have a couple more people. Somebody's Sheldon Perkis from Ontario. So thanks for joining us.
Thanks for joining us.
And anyway, we got lots of folks that are tuned in right now. So let's go ahead and get started, because you are all waiting and dying to see. So what we're going to do here is we are going to talk like this, but once in a while we'll switch over to Marc's screen. And then so you can actually see, but we'll keep talking and narrating, and we might even do a little picture in the picture so you can see what's going on. But we really want this to be interactive. If you have any questions whatsoever, you're going to put them in the stage chat in the back. All right. So let's get started with what we wanted to talk about today. So Remote Desktop Manager. Okay. Correct. It's a big tool. There's lots of things. Now, if you want more info about what it is, We've done webinars, we have videos, we have overview videos on our YouTube channel. So I would encourage you to go check that out and just search Remote Desktop Manager and you'll find all the details you might need. But today we really wanted to get into the weeds, into the trenches, so to speak. So the first question that you wanted to share, go ahead with.
Yeah, the first part that I think is the foundation of Remote Desktop Manager, and it's especially always the same thing that comes back to me when speaking with customers, existing or new, is always where should I store the data? This is key because obviously you've got a lot of resources to manage. So there's somewhere where you want to put all this. So I think we've got my screen on here, and to show you. And by the way, as you can see, Remote Desktop Manager's dark theme, it's all the rage these days. So it looks really great. By the way, I just wanted to bring that in. But going back here, in File, Data Sources being basically the link to the databases themselves. So under that list, if I click on the Add a New Data Source here at the top left, we have an extensive list. So under individual, to start with that one, this is more in line with the types of data sources that single users would primarily use for Remote Desktop Manager. So we have several types here: online drive, password up personal, Dropbox, Google Drive as well. SQLite, that's the one provided by default. So those that would use Remote Desktop Manager, you open it for the first time and you see local data source. That's the name you'll see in the navigation pane. That's the type of database that's loaded by default. So this is designed for single users. And then the last but not least, XML file, which you can store in whatever storage that's at your disposal. So this, again, more for single users. Now, the portion that's more oriented towards the Enterprise Edition, in fact, exclusive to the Enterprise Edition, is the team types of databases. So that's where it becomes interesting because this is where you decide where you want to store this data. So there are a few choices here. There's a few that are designed for on-premises, like SQL Express, for example. And I mentioned SQL Express because obviously Express, well, there's no associated costs to that. But if you have an existing SQL box, SQL Standard, or whatever edition of SQL that you have, you can certainly leverage existing SQL databases, not a problem for that at all. Otherwise, there are other choices as well. There's MariaDB, MySQL. If you want the best of both worlds to start with, you don't want necessarily to have all the bells and whistles to start with. You just want to set it up. You just want to set up RDM to start working with it, just to get a grips of what it does. Maybe you don't fully have the big picture, so you just want to start with not necessarily what's all the best, but at least gives you the flexibility here to work with where exactly to store that data. At least you get to work with that to start with. So Microsoft SQL Azure is an option here. And just to show you again, quickly the window here. So we have the ability to leverage Microsoft 365 with MFA support. That works great. I have, for example, Microsoft's Authenticator app on my phone with push notifications. It works just great. You'll be able to do that yourselves as well. So that's a great solution if you want the model of cloud, but also the power of SQL all at once within Remote Desktop Manager. Obviously, those are databases, again, at your disposal here. Choices that you have. If you really want, if you have a better understanding of what RDM is, you already have some options in mind, like, for example, you'd like to have advanced Active Directory integration features. So speaking of here, the things that come back often is Active Directory security groups for permission control. So that's something very interesting. It's very powerful. But this is something that we offer with our ultimate database offering, which is called Devolution Server. So this is our high-end, again, type of database here where we offer this web architecture that gives us this powerful integration with Active Directory. And that can be local AD or Microsoft 365. And again, you'll get the same features with Microsoft 365 and Devolution Server that you've just saw with SQL Azure. So again, MFA support, Azure AD groups as well, for example, because AD security groups are offered exclusively with Devolution Server, and you'll get also additional features here, I should say bells and whistles, if you will. So you'll get two-factor enforcement, geo-IP restrictions. You'll get email notifications and an optional privilege access management module within Devolution Server. So the biggest value of Devolution Server really is the security architecture that's offered. You'll get this ability to isolate the database from user authentication. So instead of being database authentication, we're speaking of domain authentication here, which is a lot more powerful and basically secures the database. So the keys to the kingdom are always at the server level, the server application itself. And there are other parameters, obviously, to help you set up and even secure further than what is offered, what you see today on this screen. And in fact, myself, for the showcase, we have Devolution Server as a database type.
Hey, Marc, I have right now I had a couple of questions in the chat. A couple things, first of all. I know some people have said, oh, I wish it was 1080p. I know we're working on it. We're just waiting for Hopin to add that option. Right now it's streaming in 720p, and that's the best we could do with this system. So thank you for sticking on. If not, like I said, you can watch the recording later. It'll be a little bit clearer because you can go full screen on YouTube. But two things. There was a good question on security. So I don't know if this is correct, but Shander Vyers said, how about security on local stored data sources like XMLs? And of course, the security with the Devolutions online database.
Right. So we use strong industry standard encryption for these types of databases. So AES 256-bit key is offered. And there is additional security information as to the encryption itself and different options that can be enabled, especially for those that right now are using SQL, not necessarily Devolution Server. Although, again, this is the best offering you can get if you want maximum security, the best features that are available with us. Devolution Server is, again, the best choice. But you still have options, again, that can be enabled through Remote Desktop Manager. So maybe we can share here in the chat, just to show you, one of the things that I have here is a document for encryption. So let me share that with my colleague here directly, and you can then put this document in the chat. So this basically outlines the encryption model of those that have, for example, SQL. I always come back to SQL because it's the mostly used one with Remote Desktop Manager versus using Devolution Server. So you'll see in that diagram the difference when it comes to model, security model, and encryption. That's for our high-end data sources. But again, coming back to online database or XML, for example, this is still using industry standard encryption again, but additional details are available on our website. The legal section, security, there's details there. And there is also one specific document on our online help for Remote Desktop Manager that also outlines options for you to secure Remote Desktop Manager, but also basically is a summer up of what I just outlined in regards to security, even for these types of data sources.
Great. There was a couple of questions, some folks that are new to some of our products, which is great, by the way, had a question about, Lisa, Devolution Server. I know Min answered the question. They said on-premises or hosted by us. But can you clarify a little bit about how Devolution Server can be hosted? Because we do some different things, as well as they said, is there a subscription or a cost for Devolution Server? So can you kind of touch on that just really quick? Yeah,
it is indeed, in all fairness here, it is indeed a separate product from Remote Desktop Manager, so it is an additional solution. This is fully on premises, so you have control over the data itself, but you can still decide where it is deployed. And that being that, for example, you could have it on Microsoft Azure services, you could run it on a VM on Azure, but it still has on-premise management components. What I mean by that is that it's not a full-fledged software as a service. Like, for example, some solutions out there, I'm mentioning quickly here, LastPass or 1Password, those are full SaaS app. They offer desktop apps, but Devolution Server itself, because of the architecture and the power that's offered, is strictly on-premises. But again, VM on Azure can certainly work. It requires IIS, so if you can ultimately leverage Microsoft's latest Windows Server, it works. The minimum requirement for domain level is 2012. But otherwise, the components, when it comes to that, we can help you install it, by the way. You don't have to manage that yourself. So that's a part of our professional services. We can help you deploy Devolution Server through a POC. So that's really no challenge at all. And when it comes to the difference here between the types of hosted and then on cloud, some of you might have seen our other cloud offerings, perhaps like Password Hub Business. It's another solution. It's kind of a 2-in-1 offering that you'll get if you decide that, well, the bells and whistles, it's just not necessary for you. You feel that Devolution Server, yeah, it's nice. It's a nice to have mostly, but it's not a requirement. You'd still like to have something that's on a cloud hosted by us. You could consider Password Hub instead. It's a 2-in-1. There's a portion of password management similar to LastPass, 1Password, and then there is this database backend that's offered with Remote Desktop Manager that makes it all the much better in terms of cloud storage here. So you've got these two options, and at the end of the day, it's a question of, are the features showcase presented about Devolution Server really something that is a requirement for you? If not, well, again, going with a cloud-hosted solution like Password Hub would do exactly the trick. But again, if you want the best, Devolution Server really is the solution to choose.
Good, great. So they said, for example, if we, okay, two questions. Does Devolution Server still require SQL Server?
Yes, it's exclusive to SQL Server. SQL on premises, Express, for example, or SQL Azure.
Okay, perfect. And then it said if we deploy, Sheldon asked, if we deploy Devolutions on site, are we able to do so on a virtual machine like a VMware or MS Hyper-V?
Oh, yes.
Absolutely. Okay.
Any instance, Windows-based. For now, it's Windows-based. I'm going to give you a little scoop here. In the future, we will add Docker support for Devolution Server. So that way, we'll be able to leverage other platforms like Linux, for example, or Mac OS, if you will, and even have the power of Docker to use it as a containerized app, for example, on Azure services. So that will be more powerful. Not, again, a full-fledged SaaS, if you will, hosted by us, but at least you'll get this additional flexibility, less reliance on hardware, more reliance on the power of the cloud.
Very cool. All right, so I think that's it for now for the, I think the questions so far. Good job. James is on fire too. He's answering a bunch of things, putting notes there for you.
Excellent.
Okay, so the first tip. So let me, I cut you off there. So continue with your choosing the right kind of data source for your organization.
Yeah, well, that pretty much, to sum up here what we've discussed again, if you want the best for security, for features, Devolution Server really is to consider. But again, if you just want to start quick, you don't want to necessarily have to go through all of the advanced features yet. You just, again, just a reminder here, you just want to get the grips of it. You just want to understand what it does. If you don't really have an understanding here, you can take all the time. You always have 30 days of trials, and we always extend beyond that. So you don't have to rush yourselves into running through the ropes of the program. Just take the time to get to know it, to get familiar with the interface as well, because there is a learning curve for a Remote Desktop Manager. I will not lie about that. But what's great about RDM as well is that it's a bit modular. There are some things you can remove that's just not necessary for you. You feel that I don't need that. It will make it better for me just to use what I need. So maybe you'll use 25% of what RDM does, but it's 100% of what you need. And again, you'll hear me say that a lot, and I'm going to use it today. It's a Swiss Army knife with 10,000 blades, single pane of glass, one solution to rule them all, one-stop shop. I mean, you got them all. The only thing we can't do, I believe, is coffee, right?
Yeah,
we can't do that, but never say never. We'll probably have soon a button in RDM that'll say, brew me some coffee, and it'll just work.
Have a little Raspberry Pi connected to it somewhere.
Ah, yes. It'll just do it. It'll just work great.
That's awesome. Okay, so you want to head on to the next point?
Yes, so our next point of great importance is to manage credentials, but also inheritance. This is something, the second mostly requested point here is about credentials and inheritance. So what I'm going to share with you today is part of a document that we have as well, and my colleague James can share it with all of you so you can follow at the same time, which is our document for managing credentials. So there are several ways to manage credentials, many roads that lead to Rome. At the end of the day, it's all about choice. So if we start first with the basics, inheritance, that's key. You've got X number of servers that you want them to use the same set of credentials. You just wanted that to be easy. Let's say you've got password policies, needs to reset every 30, 90 days, 60, whatever. You just don't want to have to go through the entire process. You want to reduce the number of clicks here. That's the essence. And RDM is all about giving you the least number of clicks as possible. If we can reduce that, we'll do it. So that's what makes the power of RDM. It's just one click away. So going here, have a folder here. I'll just take this one, for example, RD Gateway. It's a simple folder. I'll go into folder properties. I've got 2 sessions. That's just a plain example here. So I can specify a general credentials here, username, domain, password, whatnot. I put it there. It's done. But then I can just say, okay, I got my sessions under here. I want them to inherit these credentials. So I can, from here, use one of the things that I will also mention later on is our batch change of credentials. So from our right-click menu, we can go quickly here, edit, and then batch edit, change saved credentials, and say, I want them to be set to inherited. So once we click on save, these credentials will then be passed along to these 2 devices through inheritance. So that's the power of RDM. Everything is just, or at least most, the vast majority of things is just one click away. It's just about knowing exactly where that option is. And that's what this call is all about today. That's what this webinar is all about today. Yeah, sure. So that's very powerful. Again, it's not the only way. There are many roads, again, that lead to Rome here. So our next option is when it comes to people using their own credentials. I hear that often. This is something also very powerful, very important. I want to use my own logins. I don't want to have to share that with people. I don't want them to know exactly what I'm doing. I don't want to go through the process of permissions and whatnot, even if it's easy. There's still additional processes here that can be reduced or removed completely because it's just isolated within the context of your user account. That's key here. So going through the same thing that I did, but this time I'm going to go through another menu. Again, right-click here, edit, user-specific settings. This is very, very powerful. So everyone that has a user login, an identity in our product, regardless of the type of database, of team database that you use, this is limited to team databases, you'll be able to override credentials through, again, user-specific settings. The word says it, user-specific. It's really specific per each individual logging into Remote Desktop Manager. So if you want, you have one set of credentials that you can set there, the same way we did in the General tab for the folder. So you provide your credentials there, do the same process for inheritance, it will work just great. So that's one way. And then in our drop-down here, we've got several options. And the one that's very interesting here is the linked user vault. User vault, that's very interesting. Maybe some of you already know that, maybe you don't. The user vault is the personal space for you within RDM to store whatever it is you want to store in there. So when it comes to whatever type of entry you want, this is where the user vault would be. So a quick pivot here to show you what this user vault is. And again, before, credentials, you'll have a set of them. As you can see, you can switch along as you need. If you've got multiple logins you want to switch to, you'll be able to do so within Remote Desktop Manager with, again, user-specific settings with the user vault. So what is that user vault? Where is it? Well, it's very simple here. For those that have the option navigation here at the bottom, this is the user vault. So I switch here, and then I have my set of personal entries. So it's exactly like the shared one, but this is personal to yourself in the database and obviously encrypted. And just safeguard here, no administrators can have access in real time to personal vaults. So this is a secure area. You put in your own credentials. You got a number of them. You'll be able to access them from there. And as you can see, these are the same credentials that we saw very quickly back through the user-specific settings window in the shared section of sessions within Remote Desktop Manager. So again, going back to many roads that lead to Rome, this is another way. You've got multiple credentials. You've got other sessions. You've got different types of credentials as well that you want to put in place. One of the things that comes back often is the use of third-party password managers, like Tychotic, a secret server, that comes back often as well. You want to use that with Remote Desktop Manager. That's the part of the Swiss Army knife. Again, we integrate with these technologies to make your life easier, to have the power of RDM and have the vault of another password manager. Although, keep in mind that Remote Desktop Manager can replace these password managers. RDM, again, going back to one solution to rule them all. This really is designed to cover all of that. So that's pretty much about credentials here as well. Access to credentials themselves with permissions, you'll be able to restrict that. Password visibility, that's key. And then the different scenarios that have been outlined as well, covered here. My personal credentials is something else that you can certainly leverage as well. Small difference with my personal credentials. This is local to the device. So something happens to your computer, it crashes, data is lost, that will not be recoverable. Whereas to the database, user-specific settings, user vault, that's at the database level. You lose your laptop, it breaks, you just switch laptops, you log in to the database, to at least RDM with your login account, and then everything is back to normal. You still have access to your information. So just quickly, I mentioned my personal credentials just to show where it is. So file, my account settings, and then here my personal credentials. So you specify a plain username and password, and you can use that through sessions as well, if that's a better option for you. Again, as you can see, many roads lead to Rome. Again, I'm repeating myself here, but this is key. And you decide at the end of the day which option is best, whichever greater. This is the key with RDM. It's the essence of RDM. It's all about choice, but it's also about granularity, automation, and flexibility. That's the level of flexibility you get with Remote Desktop Manager. Again, there are no secrets, or at least there aren't many.
Well, so far in the chat, there's been a lot of great questions.
Yeah.
And a lot of them people, we've got James who's answering, we've got Min who's answering these questions. Yeah. So thank you guys for doing that as well. But there's some great, so far so good. A lot of questions about that. We'll keep moving on. But if you have any questions, yeah, sure, post them in the chat, and somebody will grab your question and answer as best as we can. So we talked about managing credentials. Next one, a big word today, automation. Because we're trying to simplify things when we can, because I know it's kind of a heavy software. There's a lot of features and options. So is there ways to make things go quicker for the user, maybe daily tasks, things that people do every day? What's your tips for this one?
Yeah, once you've got the grips of, basically, you've set up the database, you've verified what you can do in terms of credentials. Obviously, you're now at the point of creating a list of sessions. You want a hierarchy, you want folders, whether it's internal resources or customers. A typical scenario here is MSP. And as you've seen on my screen earlier, and as you will see again, it's all about having different scenarios in place, but resources are what you will store. And there are many ways to automate the process of creation. Because if you've got hundreds or thousands of servers, we've seen that with the larger corporations, you don't want to have to do that by hand. You just want to get there. If you want to make a transition from something that's not optimal, that's not ideal, you want something that does it for you, that's automated completely, well, you want options that will do it for you. So Remote Desktop Manager has many options here, and the greatest ones will be outlined today. PowerShell is the first one. A lot of people like PowerShell. Some prefer the GUI, like myself, but PowerShell is one option. So PowerShell, you'll be able to automatically create entries with scripts. We've got an array of samples, whether it's on our forum with the PowerShell repository, and let me share that link directly with my colleague here, so he can then share it with you. So our PowerShell repository on our forum contains years of knowledge. So you'll be able to see from there a lot of interesting scripts to help you create entries. But there is also our dedicated PowerShell scripting documentation on online help for Remote Desktop Manager. That's also interesting. You'll see as well a link that brings you in over to GitHub, where we've got all our scripts documented there for everyone to see. So that's the power of Remote Desktop Manager. This is probably one of the best, I would say, at PowerShell. We got a lot of questions on PowerShell. So you'll be able to leverage that, and this is perhaps, if for you it's the best way, go ahead. But otherwise, we've got some other options. But just to show you on my screen here, if we go under Tools, PowerShell, this is the module that you will leverage within Remote Desktop Manager. This is where you will send in commands. This is where you will work with Remote Desktop Manager. Again, the Tools tab here for everyone to see. This is where you leverage the PowerShell module with the scripts, the sample scripts to help you create entries, modify things in RDM, automate tasks as well. You'll be able to do all of that with our PowerShell module. The next option in terms of automatically creating entries are our import options in the file menu here. So under File, Import, we've got several tools that you can bring in over. So an example here, Damware, I hear that a lot. You've got Super Putty if you use that. Vision App, formerly called Vision App, ASG Remote Desktop. For those that are more familiar with that name, LogMeIn, Real VNC, TeamViewer Manager as well, Putty, Microsoft's old RDC Manager.rdg files. You can bring that over. If you're a terminals user, Mobile Xterm, Royalty SM Remote, just those are the ones that I've heard about often. Royalty SM Remote, RDC Manager, Mobile Xterm, those are ones I see often. Maybe some of you today use Remote Desktop Manager in parallel with these products. Maybe you're making a comparison between both. But obviously, I will tell you, we do so much more than them. Not necessarily that you would see the Enterprise Edition as the only solution to go forward with. Maybe the free edition is more than enough, but at least you'll get an up in terms of tools that you get with these other products, and you get also a product that's constantly being updated. Some of you might have seen the constant updates that we release. That's what makes the power of RDM. It's ever evolving model of features of tools as well. It's your sysadmin toolbox. You don't have to consider anything else. Again, one solution to rule them all. You just switch away from the other products, and you've got something that's solid and simple. That's the key. Also, a keywords here for a Remote Desktop Manager when describing it. Another option as well. If you don't have any other existing products, you've got a file here, CSV. Well, the option for you to consider would be our import from a generic CSV. So you would take in a CSV file. You would have also the ability for you to have, through your CSV file, the ability to change the format to match our fields so that you decide where exactly the information you have stored in the CSV file, where do you want this put? What type of entry you want to create? What type of data will be stored? Is it information, physical information? Is it credentials? Is it a host name, et cetera, et cetera? So this CSV wizard will give you that power to customize your import file and adjust it to your needs based on where that import is coming from. So that's the best option. Perhaps we can share as well in the chat the import strategies to have a better understanding of what I'm talking about, because maybe for some people this is gibberish. But the import strategies will make a lot of sense here. We've got the samples that'll show you exactly what I'm talking about with the CSV wizard, and then this really is the option you'll get here to import your entries.
Great. I have
go ahead.
a couple of questions that came up because I know you're going to move on to Synchronizers here in a second.
Yeah, that's fine.
But somebody asked, V. Britt said, can PowerShell Ise be launched with Rdm module?
That's a good question. Yes, I believe it should be. It's not a problem. We've got an executable that can launch command line or even PowerShell itself. We can call the ISE if I'm not mistaken.
Okay. Jeff Bloom asked a good question. It might be a little bit more deep, but it said, what is the best way to handle multiple roles that have access to the same server session, i.e. RDP? He said, I looked at shortcuts, but if a user in a role goes to delete the shortcut, they get prompted if they want to delete the original.
Right. So in terms of permissions, and I will pivot to that right now. Perhaps what I will explain will give a better understanding here. The way it works is that it's granularity again is key. So you decide where who has access to what through permissions, and you give that through a delegation that's similar to Windows and TFS. So in a similar fashion here, you've got a parent folder. Perhaps we can share my screen just to show here. We have, for example, I'll take Cloud Zone here, folder properties. Under permissions, we have here different sets of permissions. So view, add, edit, delete, view password, that's key here. And the connect, execute, which is allowing us to open sessions. So whatever entry that we can, that is a session itself, the ability to open them, that's the connect, execute. So the key here is that in a similar fashion of Windows and TFS, you apply permissions at the parent folder, in this case, the Cloud Zone folder. It applies top on down. And as needed, you can break inheritance and apply exceptions. So if you have, for example, user groups, because that's basically the containers for users to go more quickly into assigning permissions, if you've got one that's applied at a parent folder and then applied somewhere else, at least the view permission is required on the parent folder, but then you can break the inheritance and hide certain folders. So let's say I have here RD Gateway, I have, let's close out that window. I have RD Gateway, I have RD Jump Server, Secure Gateway, and whatnot. So I've got people that should have access to, let's say, only RDM Jump Server, but I want them to restrict access to RD Gateway. Well, it's just a question of breaking that inheritance. So going back into folder properties, and then under permissions here, I will just break that link and then say either never or just specify another user group that they have access to, but those that will not have access to are not listed there and basically cannot see these folders or whatever resources are stored in them. So I think that would be perhaps the easiest way for to answer this question, perhaps to understand. Let me know if you're still in the dark here. But I think with experience here with because your question is very similar to what I've experienced with other customers in the past, and this explanation basically provided more clarity on how permissions work. So let me know if it's not clear, and perhaps I can refine a bit more the process here. But that's pretty much how it works. It's granularity is key. You've got the keys to the kingdom. The administrators, the sysadmins, they always got the keys to the kingdom, and you decide who has access to what. That's really the main the takeaway here from our permission system. Granularity, you decide who has access to what.
Great. There's a lot of questions going on right now about that, and a lot of them are being answered as we speak. So is there? Do you want to keep moving on so that for sake of time to the next point? Are we already running out of time? Or?
No, I talk too much.
We've got 18 minutes, so you're fine.
All right,
but sure.
Yeah. So our next on the list for import is synchronizers. So this is very powerful. The synchronizers really are something that amazes people every time I show that, and every time we as a team show that as well. So under new entry here, we will see the list synchronizers. And perhaps some of you as well, if you want to follow me, again, new entry under synchronizer. We have a list here. Active Directory, CSV files, Hyper-V, VMware, EC2, Amazon EC2. That's really powerful. What does it do? Well, it creates entries based on these sources. You've got Active Directory servers and computers. You've got VMs on Hyper-V. You've got VMs on VMware. These are designed to automatically create sessions based on these sources. So it's another way of automating the creation of entries. With synchronizers, it does it all for you. So on a scheduled process, you can add servers, you can delete servers, you can modify servers. Whatever you've done on the side of the source itself will be replicated in Remote Desktop Manager automatically on a scheduled task. That can be done in file background services if you want to work with Remote Desktop Manager to do the work, but you can also work with a Windows scheduled task. And we have a knowledge base article on the matter. Perhaps James can share that, where you just create a task on a Windows server. It calls upon, we've got all the steps there to create that task, and it works just great. So background services, if you want to go through RDM, or again, the scheduled task to do the work. So what does it do in action? Just to show you here, I will take my VMware Synchronizer. I will open a session. I have a few already created, but I'm just going to show you that in the synchronization process here, as you see it's running, we'll then have a result that shows exactly what was synchronized. So that's just very powerful. It just is really amazing. It does it for you. You've got the list of servers. Then, as you can see here, the sync I've added. Here it's only additions. No modifications have been made. So as you can see, I've got all of these sessions added. Those are RDP session. They appear here under my vSphere prod. I have got a list here. VMware Remote Console is used, but in an instance, you could, for example, decide to switch over to RDP. You could even use, again, one of the things that I showcased earlier, our batch edit, which we will showcase a bit more in a few moments.
Hey, Marc,
within Remote Desktop Manager. Yeah.
Jerome asked, does the VMware Sync copy over the folders as well?
Yes, we've got an option to copy over the folder. If we go in the properties here, under settings, we can click on synchronize folders.
Very, very cool. That's awesome. Is there also, Shauna said, is there a way to use a synchronizer to read in computer accounts from an OU and then use those names in a website URL?
Oh, that's a very good one. As far as I know, it's not possible. But that's a very good one. That's pretty deep. As far as I know, it's not possible. Perhaps people that, to be very fairly honest with you, I don't know. From what I believe, it's not possible at all. Maybe somebody can confirm that if it is possible, and that I'll be dumbfounded. But as far as I know, it's not possible to do that. But it's a good one. Perhaps maybe we could take note of that. That's something very interesting. If it's possible to be done, or again, it's already possible. I don't know. But yeah, that's very interesting. But as far as I know, it's not possible.
I also noticed a question here. Benjamin Strohmeyer said, is there a possibility, this is going back to user-specific settings, is there a possibility to check who is using user-specific settings in the database? Is there a way to, like, a report or something, or a log or anything?
Yes, there is in the administration tab under users, you will see in a report under the user interface, there is a section has user-specific settings. It's a green check mark. Perhaps I can show it. What it will do, however, since I'm using Devolution Server, it will open on the web interface here.
Sure.
It's still sharing my screen. So let's go over to the web interface here. Whoops. The typos. Under the administration, I think we have a report here for the user-specific settings. Let's see, maybe it's not listed with Devolution Server. I can't quite remember. I do know there is, however, a report for that. I'm just not sure with this type of database, however, it can be listed. Maybe I'm just not aware of it, but it can be listed. That I can tell you.
Okay.
So rest assured that you can see that.
So what we can get on that and find out for you a little bit more. Okay. All right. So let's. You were talking about synchronizers. Anything else you wanted to talk about for synchronizers?
Well, it's pretty much again the power here that we saw. It's all about automation of creation of entries.
Cool.
So from that source, that's what it does. That's what the synchronizers are designed to do.
Very cool. All right. So what's the next pro tip number 4?
Yeah, pro tip number 4 is how to use batch change and custom actions. That's powerful. This is something that makes Remote Desktop Manager powerful here. It's the ability for you. You've made things. You've done a lot of work, but you want to. Like on a sheet of paper, you want to erase some things and then rewrite it. Well, you just don't want to have to erase it and then having to rewrite it manually each time. Well, at least with us, you can just do that all at once. So our batch system does exactly that. So for example, under the View tab, the Advanced Search System will give you this tool that you are looking for. Again, View tab, Advanced Search, This is what you'd be looking at under here. I will search for example, a connection type. I will take a plain and simple RDP session, Microsoft Remote Desktop. I will search for that entry, and then I have listed every type of RDP session that is in my vault within Remote Desktop Manager. So just to show you, again here, I will multi-select a few of them, and then under the Edit menu, Batch Edit, I can then edit the entries, the session type specifically, or the general settings. Session type will be more in line with the type of entry itself. So for RDP, you will modify settings that are specific to RDP or general settings like the name, the host, and whatnot. This is what the general settings will allow you to do. If we look, for example, at session type, that's something that comes back often more than I would say general settings here. Specifically for RDP, this is where you can change them. So you want to change here credential edit, logon, settings, and batch. You want to change credentials if they are already specified in the entry itself. You want to change that. You want to change the port. You want to always ask for password. You want to open console admin mode, and so on and so on. Whatever options you want to change, you can do that. Local resources as well. That's very interesting. You want to disable drive redirection. Just a tip of a click on OK, it applies. On the selected entries, programs, experience, connection, and whatnot, and so on. This is, as you can see, it's the section designed for just RDP. So what's on the left in the properties, on the right rather, that's what's all about session type. Then if we look, just for showcasing here, if we look at editing through batch edit, general settings here, this is this time more on the left. So changing, I don't know, you want to change the icon, you want to change the folder, the location of the entry, the display itself, display embedded within the dashboard, or external for RDP, it uses MSTSC, undock, a mixture of both, on description, user interface, and so on and so on. So this is the picture of our batch change here, batch edit function. You just change parameters through the UI. So this is what will allow you to do this with Remote Desktop Manager. We have another type. We've got custom actions or a custom PowerShell command. This is, it will require a bit more work, to be honest, but it's not as difficult as it sounds. So if I take, for example, here, I will change the type of entry. One of them that requires it is SSH. So SSH shell will require you to go through custom PowerShell commands, but we've got a lot of them listed on an online help article, or perhaps we've moved that over to our knowledge base. Perhaps we can share the link so people can see exactly what are the different types of custom changes that can be made. But the essence here is the same as I did with RDP. But this time I will take here under edit, batch edit, I will take the special action. Actually, it's through, that's strange, it's not in a context menu. Special actions. Ooh, I'm blind. Custom PowerShell command. So this is what you'd be using. So as you can see here, a sample is provided connection.name. In this case, it's connection.terminal, and then specifically the type of parameter you want to change. You'll be able to specify that. So if some of you today can see the link in the chat, you'll see all the different types of scripting of PowerShell commands you can run depending on the type of entry you're using. We've got a few of them listed, but this basically, we also showcase exactly how to get the specific type of option you can change via custom PowerShell commands. But this is basically here where you will do it. So you specify the type of entry, the modified parameter, and then RDM save to save the parameter through Remote Desktop Manager. This is our batch action sample provided through Remote Desktop Manager.
Very cool. Yeah, I by the way, I wasn't trying to rush you. I realized I said 11 o'clock, but it's actually 11:30. I don't know why I have
No, that's fine. I talk too
no,
much
so
anyway.
we do have time, but no, we're doing great. But I was like, I didn't want you to panic because I said 11
No,
o'clock
it's fine.
earlier. I misspoke. I'm sorry. So we have to
No
11:30.
problem.
But man, yeah. So far, is Synchronizer available in the free edition?
That's a good question. If I'm not mistaken, I believe so. I think it was unlocked. Maybe it wasn't. I think it was unlocked, but maybe I'm overreaching here. To be on the safe side, I would say it's still enterprise, but maybe that changed and I wasn't aware of it.
Okay. So what we'll do though is we can check on that for them. But
Sure.
So what? I misspoke again. I'm sorry. So at 11, we're gonna head over to the session tab after that. So if you have any more specific questions to ask Marc, we're gonna keep talking like this, but we'll be in the sessions tab because it'll be a little bit different format. Okay. So let's keep going. We are gonna go to. You finished the batch actions, custom actions.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
So what's the tip number 5? These are just like the candy, right? The extra stuff. So talk about some of the neat things that we've done recently. And I think that the tips, I think that people really like the hands-on stuff.
Yeah, and this last tip is all about uncovering the what differentiates Remote Desktop Manager from all the other solutions. That comes back often. You know, people will say, well, your offering is similar to other products. There is some similarities, but you'll see what we offer in terms of the fact that the synergy between everything under one single application is what differentiates us from everybody else. So I like to call them the greatest hits because it's things that have been requested for a very long time, but because of technological challenges and limitations, have prevented us from delivering something that would be convenient for everyone. But today, I'm very pleased, and I'm sure all of us as a business are pleased to announce that things like thumbnails for RDC Manager, maybe some of you are using it, maybe not, is available with a Remote Desktop Manager. Session recording is available as well for RDP SSH, just to name these two technologies. So at 1 frame per second, you can see what your people are doing. You decide exactly where this file is going. We've got also have things like group policy objects. I'm sure not every solution out there can do that. I don't think Mobile Xterm or Royalty Yes can do group policy objects. Maybe they do. I'm just not aware of it. But us, it's extensive. You can lock down Remote Desktop Manager quite a lot with our group policy objects. So those are all things that we will go over through in just a few moments. So to start with, on my screen, the thumbnails feature. So that's something that was brought in from RDC Manager. Maybe some of you are here today that have requested that on our forum, and maybe you're already using it. Maybe you weren't aware that for some time now we've had this feature. But to show you, we have here a plain RDP session. I open that here. Going back to my thumbnails, I have here my session running. Takes just a few moments. As you can see, I can increase the size at the bottom right to see more what's going on. And there is a refresh of that screen. The latest we can do is 3 seconds. So you have a monitoring window of sessions that are ongoing within Remote Desktop Manager within thumbnails. So something that was brought in again from RDC Manager, you've got within now RDM. So I like to say that we are RDC Manager on steroids, and we just do so much more than RDC Manager. So it has become, irrelevant to stay with RDC Manager, and in fact, just in terms of security, because of the fact that there was a vulnerability discovered. But Remote Desktop Manager has this power, this security. Again, going back to our earlier statements, that it has everything you need to secure within Remote Desktop Manager and make it the best possible solution when it comes to managing connections like RDP. So that's for thumbnails. Now, moving over to the second part, session recording. That's something as well that was requested for a while that we've been able to deliver as well. Perhaps we can share a document here for session recording. I believe we have one in our knowledge base for people to see. But to show you exactly where this is for RDP, just to, again, name this one, very used more often in terms of technology. Under here, session recording, I will specify required. So you see the recording here, local, set for now, and then you have a destination that you can decide as custom. You can put this recording either local. If you want it to stay local, you've got control on the device, so you're not afraid to put that local, or you decide to use a network share. For example, you'll be able to do that through a network share, and obviously through permissions, our permission system, you'll be able to hide access to these parameters and preventing users from changing that. So you don't want any malicious interaction with that. You don't want rogue people going and playing with options they shouldn't be playing with. Again, going back to the fact that you always have the keys to the kingdom here. You lock down as much as possible, but give you a lot of auditing tools here to hide things that would normally give you perhaps concerns as to know what your people are doing. So this is part of Remote Desktop Manager. And again, last but not least, here is the file name itself. My favorite, the entry name plus date and time. So the entry name itself, the session that was open with session recording enabled. And then you have the date and time stamp that will be offered once the recording is done. So basically shutting down the session. The recording is processed. The recording file is created with the entry name plus date and time. Moving on here, one of the other tools, do we have any questions? Just not to miss anyone.
Right now, no, there was, I think that most of them are being answered right. Well, somebody said, Murad actually, he said, I had some trouble with the web sessions display. Is there a shortcut to zoom in or zoom out with web sessions? I'm not sure what he's referring to. If it's
that's a good one. I would suggest that he's suggesting for web sessions in embedded mode. It depends. I believe it depends on the technology. Maybe it is offered. We can quickly check here. It's just a few seconds here. So I will take, for example, a web browser session. I would surmise this is what you're using here, the web browser session entry. I don't think we have a zoom. No more settings. This is for default, which is Chrome here. If we take Google Chrome, more settings, a few more settings here, advanced. Zoom factor. Yes, we do. Zoom factor. I'm just not familiar with that. Okay. Yes, you can adjust it at 10% increments.
Okay, very cool. Yeah, good. So far, so good. I think that a lot of questions are being answered on there, but thank you for answering for asking questions. We're here, that's what we're here to do. All right, good. Keep going. Do you want to talk a custom installer?
Yes, the custom installer. This is something that I like to share with our people because this is something that gives you another way of making your life easier with RDM, and this is all about deployment. Because when you have large teams and you, not necessarily everyone has all the keys to the kingdom. Again, I'm going back to this term. So there are some things that they wouldn't be able to do that would require administrative access. So with the custom installer, you've got the ability to create a customized installation package of Remote Desktop Manager, and perhaps we can share the document here as well in the chat so people can see what I'm talking about. This allows you to deploy RDM with customized parameters, and that can include the most important part, the database connection itself. Okay. So once you deploy that through SSCM, PQ deploy, or I believe Intune would work as well, just to name these three that I know, your people, they open RDM, it's installed, they authenticate, and they're ready to start working. You've set up everything for them. There's no going through the hassle of them opening RDM and then having to parameter things and doing the install process. You're reducing the number of clicks here again. So another way of automating things, that's another tool for automation. So the custom installer will give you this power to install RDM on multiple devices. It's a really powerful solution. Very important here, completely free with Remote Desktop Manager, and either executable or MSI works perfectly for Windows devices.
Very cool. Very good.
Our next part, group policy objects. I've shared with you earlier. Group policy objects, very powerful here. I'll go a bit more briefly since we've already pretty much explained what the group policy objects does. But perhaps we can share as well that article that we have, a knowledge-based article for group policy objects. I know we're sharing a lot of documents, but I like sharing. In the Help tab, under Diagnostic, you will have a better view of the types of policies you can put in place. And from here, we have actually one enabled for our demo showcase. It's the automatic update check. And as you can see, we've got the location of that registry key that's enabled to disable the update check. And then you've got other options. You want to hide custom image edition. You want to disable caching. You want to disable the about menu. You want to disable the add-on system, which is our next subject. You want to disable the ability to execute scripts via our terminal, one feature that we have. You want to disable file data sources for security purposes, file options as well, the help menu, and so on and so on. So it's very granular, all these options. And what the beauty behind that also is that I would say over 90% of these group policy objects that are here are based on community requests. People that have requested to have these added, to give them more keys to the kingdom, to retrieve more keys here, because there are some things you want to give to your people, that there are some things that, from your own judgment, not that you don't trust your people, but, it's in the environment that we live today, especially when it comes to cybersecurity, you just want to make sure that you've got everything in place per company policy and auditing policies as well. If you go through certifications, just like we have, you want to make sure that there are no stones left unturned that could come back and bite you hard and badly. Nobody wants to be the next SolarWinds. Nobody wants to be the next Electronic Arts. I've heard that very recently. I was sad to hear that. I'm a big fan of game here. But at the end of the day, nobody wants to be part of another breach. So all of these options available to you within Remote Desktop Manager, but not just RDM, all our other products as well. These give you the power you need to secure Remote Desktop Manager as much as possible. And again, as you can see, we've got an array here. And don't hesitate to request new ones, even today or after this session, through our forum for feature requests. If there are some things you would like to have added, that's the power of RDM. Over 80% of the things you see in our solution are based on community requests. It's made by you for you. So that's really what RDM is. And this is what it will continue to be for the foreseeable future, and I think it for many years to come, in fact. And it's there's no stopping us. We are constantly improving RDM, and security is always and most importantly at the forefront of everything we do.
Very cool. Very cool. All right. Do you want to talk about the? We're going to head on over to the session in just a minute. But the last demo thing that you wanted to show off was
the add-on manager.
Very
something
cool.
that's that people always like to see. Those are on-demand technologies. So going back to my screen here, always in the Tools tab, Add-on Manager, this is where you will see on-demand technologies. One of the things that might come up to your mind today is, why an Add-on Manager? Because it's just a question of activating an add-on, and it's then listed in the Add New Entry menu. So why an Add-on Manager? Why not just put them all in the basket? Well, in terms of being user intuitive here, it would defeat the purpose of it being user intuitive, because you would have a lot of entries. It would just make it more difficult for you to then having to scroll down through a lot of sessions. You just have the ones you need. You search for the ones you need. Again, Cisco, for example. Sonic Wall as well. Those are VPN technologies, but I don't know, Amy Admin, that's the one presented here. Whatever type of entry, VPN, session tools as well, session types, it's all listed here. If you see one that you want to use, for example, BombGuard, that's something that comes back often. I've heard about Cisco ASDM recently, Checkpoint, Smart Console as well, AnyDesk, whatever it is you need to use, it's probably there. And the beauty of that as well is that if there's a technology you want to use, you don't see in Remote Desktop Manager, perhaps it's already been requested on our forum, it's ongoing, it's on our to-do list, or it hasn't been requested, you can request it, and we'll go do some back and forth with you to see if it's possible for us to do something, and if we can, we will consider it and perhaps add it in an update.
Very, very cool. I know we got some good questions coming in. Some of these are a little bit more intense, though.
That's fine.
So one of the questions, he is intense. All right, so I'm going to ask this question because I think it's good. VBrit asks, what has Devolutions done to not be the next SolarWinds?
Oh my, quite a lot. To be very honest with you, it's all a question of processes. It's a question of taking also security very seriously. I mean, it's all well and good to say that you don't want to be the next SolarWinds. People will say that, but we have documents that attest to that. And you don't share documents lightly if you're not confident with the power of your solution. We have processes in place to ensure that we are very transparent. We can never say never. I will be also transparent with you here. Nothing is fail-safe, but really we've put all the checks and balances, and we still are in the process of putting even more. We're always at the forefront of technology here, but also keeping tabs with compatibility. We want to make sure that Remote Desktop Manager and our array of products, because RDM is the flagship, but to make sure that our array of solutions remain the best there is to offer, because that's what we advertise. I mean, it would be bad from us to say that we are a very secure solution if somebody finds something very easily. Well, I mean, it would be quite an understatement that I'm making here then, and saying that we are secure. It would be a lie. But I'm very confident to say that we've got the checks and balances needed. We are ISO 27001 2013 certified on our legal section or security section on our website. Perhaps we can share that with our people here assisting us today for this presentation. If that has already been done, you'll see our certification provided by NQA Global Assurance. There is also our SOC3 certification provided, and PCI DSS, our commitment to security as well, and also going back to our security model encryption that was provided earlier. So that's our commitment. It's written black on white. That's very transparent, and there is more to come. We don't stop there. We want to go further here. We want to provide solutions that are far more robust, even though they are very robust today. There's always more that can be run. There's always more room for improvement. That's the beauty of software here. And thank God for the frameworks that exist and all the technologies out there that we use. That's what makes us, and our innovative minds as well, that's what makes us better than all the others out there, I would say. But our commitment to security is clear. I'm not afraid to say that.
Very good. I think we also, I know from our end internally, we have an excellent, like a big shout out to our security team.
Security team, yes.
We have an amazing CISO who has been given full green light from David Hervieux, our CEO, which I know sometimes even when I've talked to him, sometimes there have been conflicts between, well, the security wants this and we want this, and you got to manage that with the developers. And it's a challenge. But he's been really given full-fledged, like because we take security very seriously here, and we're doing our absolute best to and we practice dog fooding too with
exactly dog fooding, we use bug bashing, internal bug bashing as well.
Yeah, internal bug bashing. We try to use our own. Yeah. We have our own team of internal ethical hackers as well. But but like you said though, we never promise anything, but you have the promise that we actually do our best to be aware of what's going on in the world today. Yeah. But thank you so much for watching. We hope these tips were helpful. And if you like this type of thing, please let us know in the comments and in the chat, because we will do more of these in the fall. So thanks, Marc, for joining us today.
Thanks so much. And thanks so much to all of you.
Absolutely, yeah. So we're going to head on over to the session. Thank you so much, and we'll talk to you in a few minutes. All right, bye.